I'll play some music to it.
Has ever known are alive and working today, despite the fact that this nation's own scientific manpower is doubling every 12 years in a rate of growth more than 3 times that of our population as a whole. Despite that, the vast stretches of the unknown and the unanswered and the unfinished still far outstrip our collective comprehension. No man can fully grasp how far and how fast we have come. But condense, if you will, the 50,000 years of man's recorded history in a time span of but a half a century.
I'm going to play that.
Stated in these terms, we know very little about the first 40 years, except at the end of them, advanced man had learned to use the skins of animals to cover them. Then about 10 years ago, under this standard, man emerged from his caves to construct other kinds of shelter. Only 5 years ago, man learned to write and use a cart with wheels. Christianity began less than 2 years ago. The printing press came this year. And then less than 2 months ago, during this whole 50-year span of human history, the steam engine provided a new source of power.
I remember
Newton
when
explored the meaning of gravity.
I remember
Last
when
month,
I lost my
electric lights
mind.
and telephones and automobiles
There
and
was something
airplanes
so
became
pleasant
available.
about that day.
Only last week did we develop
Maybe our
penicillin
emotions
and
hadn't
television
let go
and nuclear
for
power.
so much
And now, if America's new spacecraft succeeds in reaching Venus, we will have literally reached the
when you're
stars
out there
before midnight
without
tonight.
care, yeah,
This
I
is a
was out
breathtaking
of
pace.
touch.
And such a pace cannot help
And it's no
but create new
coincidence
ills
because I didn't know
as it
enough.
dispels old. New ignorance, new problems, new
I
dangers.
just knew too
Surely the
well.
opening vistas of space promise high costs and
That
hardships
made me
as well as high reward.
crazy.
So it is not surprising
Does
that some would
make
have
me
us stay where we are a little longer, to rest, to wait.
Does
But
that
this
make
city of
me
Houston,
crazy?
this state of Texas, this country of the United States was not built by those who waited and rested and wished to look behind them.
Come on now, who do you think you are?
This country was conquered by those who moved
Ha ha
on.
ha, bless
So
your
will space.
soul.
William Bradford, speaking in
You really
1630
think you're in control?
of the founding of the Plymouth Bay Colony, said that all great and honorable actions
Well, I think you're
are accompanied with great difficulty,
crazy.
and both must be enterprised
I think
and
you're
overcome
crazy.
with answerable courage. If this capsule history of our
I
progress
think
teaches
you're
us anything, it is that man in his quest for knowledge and progress is determined
like
and cannot be deterred. The exploration of space will go ahead, whether we join in it or not. And it is one of the great adventures of all time. And no nation which expects to be the leader of other nations can expect to stay behind in this race for space. Those who came before us made certain that this country rode the first waves of the Industrial Revolution, the first waves of modern invention, and the first wave of nuclear power. And this generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age
I
of
remember
space.
when-
We mean to be a part of
I
it.
remember
We mean to lead it.
when I lost my mind.
For the
There was
eyes of the
something so
world
pleasant about
now
that
look into
day.
space, to the moon, and to the planets beyond. And we have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest, but by a banner of freedom and peace. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons weapons of mass destruction,
when you're out
but with
there,
instruments of knowledge
out there,
and
yeah,
understanding.
I was out of
Yet the
touch.
vows of this nation can
And
only
it
be
wasn't because
fulfilled
I didn't know
if we in this
enough.
nation are first, and therefore we intend to be first.
I just knew too much. Does that make me crazy?
In short, our leadership in science and industry, our hopes for peace and security, our obligations to ourselves as well as others, all require us to make this effort to solve these mysteries, to solve them for the good of all men, and to become the world's leading spacefaring nation. We set sail on this new sea because there is new knowledge to be gained and new rights to be won, and they must be won and used
Bless your soul.
for the progress of all people. For space science, like nuclear science and all technology, has no conscience of its own. Whether it will become a force for good or ill depends on man. And only if the United States occupies a position of preeminence can we help decide whether this new ocean will be a sea of peace or a new terrifying dinner of war. I do not say that we should or will go unprotected against the hostile issues of space, any more than we go unprotected against the hostile use of land or sea. But I do say that space can be explored and mastered without feeding the fires of war, without repeating the mistakes that man has made in extending his writ around this globe of ours. There is no strife, no prejudice, no national conflict in outer space as yet. Its hazards are hostile to us all. Its conquest deserves the best of all mankind. And its opportunity for peaceful cooperation may never come again. But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to
bless your soul,
and one we intend to win, and the others too.
You really think you're in control?
It is for these reasons that I regard the decision last year to shift our efforts in space from low to high gear as among the most important decisions that will be made during my incumbency in the office of the presidency. In the last 24 hours, we have seen facilities now being created for the greatest and most complex exploration in man's history. We have felt the ground shake and the air shattered by the testing of a Saturn C-1 booster rocket, many times as powerful as the Atlas which launched John Glenn, generating power equivalents to 10,000 automobiles with their accelerator on the floor. We have seen the site where 5 F-1 rocket engines, each one as powerful as all 8 engines of the Saturn combined, will be clustered together to make the advanced Saturn missile, assembled in a new building to be built at Cape Canaveral, as tall as a 48-story structure, as wide as a city block, and as long as 2 lengths of this field. Within these last 19 months, at least 45 satellites have circled the Earth. Some 40 of them were made in the United States of America, and they were far more sophisticated and supplied far more knowledge to the people of the world than those of the Soviet Union. The Mariner spacecraft spacecraft now on its way to Venus is the most intricate instrument in the history of space science. The accuracy of that shot is comparable to firing a missile from Cape Canaveral and dropping it in this stadium between the 40-yard lines. Transit satellites are helping our ships at sea to steer a safer course. Tireless satellites have given us unprecedented warnings of hurricanes and storms, and will do the same for forest fires and icebergs. We have had our failures, but so have others, even if they do not admit them, and they may be less public. To be sure, we are behind, and will be behind for some time in manned flight. But we do not intend to stay behind, and in this decade we shall make up and move ahead.
And it wasn't because I didn't know enough.
The growth of our science and education will be enriched by new knowledge of our universe and environment, by new techniques of learning and mapping and observation, by new tools and computers for industry, medicine, the home, as well as the school. Technical institutions such as Rice will reap the harvest of these gains. And finally, the space effort itself, while still in its infancy, has already created a great number of new companies and tens of thousands of new jobs. Space and related industries are generating new demands in investment and skilled personnel. And this city, and this state, and this region will share greatly in this growth. What was once the furthest outpost of the old frontier of the West will be the furthest outpost on the new frontier of science and space. Houston, your city of Houston, with its manned spacecraft center, will become the heart of a large scientific and engineering community. During the next 5 years, the National Aeronautic and Space Administration expects to double the number of scientists and engineers in this area, to increase its outlays for salaries and expenses to $60 million a year, to invest some $200 million in plant and laboratory facilities, and to direct or contract for new space efforts over $1 billion from this center in this city. To be sure, all this costs us all a good deal of money. This year's space budget is 3 times what it was in January 1961. And it is greater than the space budget of the previous 8 years combined. That budget now stands at $5.4 billion a year, a staggering sum, though somewhat less than we pay for cigarettes and cigars every year. Space expenditures will soon rise some more, 40 cents per person per week to more than 50 cents a week for every man, woman, and child in the United States. For we have given this program a high national priority, even though I realize that this is in some measure an act of faith and vision, for we do not now know what benefits await us. But if I were to say, my fellow citizens, that we shall send to the moon 240,000 miles away from the control station in Houston, a giant rocket more than 300 feet tall, the length of this football field, made of new metal alloys, some of which have not yet been invented, capable of standing heat and stresses, several times more than have ever been experienced, fitted together with a precision better than the finest watch, carrying all the equipment needed for propulsion, guidance, control, communications, and survival on an untried mission to an unknown celestial body, and then return it safely to Earth, re-entering the atmosphere at speeds of over 25,000 miles per hour, causing heat about half that of the temperature of the sun, almost as hot as it is here today, and do all this, and do all this, and do it right, and do it
running over the
And I think
same
that
old
we must
ground.
pay what needs to be paid.
Have we
I
found?
don't think we ought to waste any money, but I think we ought to do the job. And this will be
I
done
wish
in the decade of the
you were
60s.
here,
It may be
floating
done
down
while some of you are still here at school at this college and
through the
university.
clouds.
It will be done during the terms of office of some of the people who
Memories
sit here
come
on this
rushing
platform.
up to
But it
me
will be
now.
done. And it will be done
But
before
in
the
the
end of this
space
decade.
between
And I
the
am
heaven
delighted that this university
and the
is playing a
corner
part
of
in putting a
some
man
foreign
on the
field.
moon as part of a great national effort of the United States of America.
Goodbye, Max. Goodbye, Ma. After the service,
Many years ago,
when you're
great
walking
British
slowly
explorer
to the
George
car,
Mallory,
and
who
the
was to die
silver in her hair
on Mount Everest,
shines in the
was asked
cold
why did he want to climb
November
it.
hair.
He said because it is there.
You hear the
Well, space is
tolling
there.
bell
And we're going to climb it.
and touch the silk
And the
in
moon and the
your
planets
bell.
are there. And
And
new
as
hopes
the
for knowledge and
teardrops
peace are
rise
there.
to get
And therefore,
the
as we set
comfort
sail,
of the band,
we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous
you take
and
her
dangerous
frail hand
greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked. Thank you.
and hold on to the dream. A place to stay, enough to eat. Somewhere old heroes shuffle
President Anderson,
safely down the street,
members of the
where
faculty,
you can speak out loud
trustees,
about your doubt and
distinguished
fear.
guests,
And what's more,
my old colleague, Senator Bob
no
Byrd,
one ever disappears. You
who's
never
earned
hear
his
their
degree
standard
through many
issue
years of attending Knight
clicking
Law
in your
School.
door. You can relax on both sides of the tracks, and maniacs don't blow holes in bandsmen by remote control. And everyone has recourse to the law, and no one kills the children anymore. No one kills the children anymore. Night after night, going round and round my brain. The dream is driving me insane. In the corner of some foreign field, a gunner sleeps tonight. What's done is done. We cannot just write off this final scene. Take heed of the dream. We had a dream, and that dream was to get to the moon. And that dream turned out to be a nightmare.